And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Yssah from Mexico, cosmic explorer and unified consciousness ambassador with the core mission to activate primordial codes and restore humanity's original blueprint through ancient wisdom and holofractal technology. She is also a decoder of ancient artifacts, which we will take a look at some of those today as well. Yssah, thanks for joining me and welcome.
Thank you for having me, Jeff. It's a pleasure.
Well,
I'm
we're
quite excited sharing with all of you.
Yssah, we're all meeting you for the first time today. So can we kind of start with your own spiritual and cosmic journey and how you made contact with the galactic community in the first place?
Sure. Well, ever since I was a little girl, I was very aware of very specific races, like ET races visiting me, and mainly ones that were all plasma. They would entangle their molecular structure into a way that their body could be seen. However, they were pure light. And they would always take me while I was, let's say, sleeping. And then when I would wake up, at that moment, I was not aware of that contact. So when I would wake up, I would be, like scared. And because I would see them around my bed and actually doing a very specific technique that they use in order to amplify the plasma field, which is like, we could call it as bowing, but what they are doing with that 90 degrees expansion, like the Wi-Fi, because you see the Wi-Fi is actually sort of a 90 degrees, perhaps a little bit less, but what they are generating is that field that with each one of those beings around my bed, they would be amplifying where I was as an epicenter and creating a vortex, because they would recognize me as one of them. And I do recognize myself also as one of them.
So would they appear to you as orbs of light?
No, actually, like that's their primordial or essential form. However, the plasma beings, they have reached such a level of consciousness that they can shape their body however they want. So sometimes they acquire the shape of a humanoid form in order for us to feel more related to them, and actually create a more intimate form of communication. Perhaps if we just saw orbs around us, we would be very excited, or who knows, but there wouldn't be that same receptivity in comparison that when you see humanoid forms, and then you start to connect into their field. So they work a lot through geometries, because that's one of the ways how they keep their plasma active in such a high state, because they are creating geometries, space-time geometries. So that's also how they travel, how they come and contact people. Sometimes you will see orbs that they are alone, but that's more like another mission. Let's say like a spherical body vehicle, where they are, like just heading somewhere. However, when they are, let's say, upgrading part of the network, or when they are when they want to, let's say, yes, plant or anchor something very specific within the field that they are at, they come in geometries and then start playing with the very same space memory network which is that space which is entangling all of us as a unified universe.
We kind of throw around words like plasma beings and light beings. Is there a difference between the two, and how would you define plasma?
Plasma is 99.999999999% of the space that constructs this reality. And the rest percentage is just cooled plasma. So plasma is ether. So plasma is that communion of all components that construct this universe at different scales. For instance, if we're talking about ether, you won't just say plasma. It is plasma at a Planck unit, like Planck units, which is the fundamental unit. The Planck is the fundamental unit for every particle of existence. Is, of course, you can go like deeper and deeper and deeper, but then again, it would be infinite. So for now, the Planck unit is the fundamental way to measure the particle in that constructs the universe. So plasma is ether is plasma, Planck plasma. And Planck plasma is also 0-point energy. So we have different, like plasma, different levels. We know that light as well, everything is light, even in the shadow, just within the different spectrum of light. For instance, black would be the communion of all colors, concentrated, like so entangled to one another, so compressed that actually you need to generate this spaciousness, which is the womb, which is when we get to see, the blackness in the womb. They reach such, like, let's say through gamma waves, which is the most expanded form of energy, like the stars. They're gamma, bam, 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 in this electric current. And then they are so excited that then at some point, in order to continue evolving, they compress, torsion, and then create that spaciousness, which within that spaciousness, plasma exists. So the difference that of how we could refer from plasma to light is that light could be just considered as merely working through the aspect that we get to perceive through our eyes. However, plasma is that also untangible thing that exists. So different, again, to address different ways of measurements. For instance, the sound, how it's measured through frequency, and how the light can be perceived through the very same vibration of how it is collapsing with another photon and then creating different kinds of grids, or nets. So it's mostly about what we get to perceive and non-perceive.
Earlier, you mentioned that you are one of them. So would it be correct to say that you are an ET incarnating as a human, having an experience here for some mission?
I do believe that we are, like how it's called, starseed, that we are multidimensional beings embodying just now to experience a human life. And the more that we actually get to remember who we are and why we came here for, the more that we identify ourselves as precisely that. And there is people that didn't come to remember this at all. And that's also very valuable, So, but yet the ones that we came here to remember that, yeah, we all have from that. So in my case, yes, I have deep memories and active memories, and I can relate definitely at a very intimate level with the ET community.
So do you feel like you have a specific mission or job to do while you're here?
Yes, I do. And I just want to say, thank you for everything that you're asking. And I'm going to address to that. The fact that I address to that, I do not consider myself, as this savior of all. And, no, I'm just, talking about my perception, which actually I get to see in other people as well, in other beings, just to say. But yeah, I do have a very specific mission. And part of it, I was initiated and prepared for that in Egypt, for around 1 or 2 years. I was every day going to the Giza Plateau, to the pyramids, and being there for hours. And even the light would go off, and I would stay there. And I remembered how to use my voice, speaking about energy, frequency, and vibration. So that the light photonic, yeah, photons anyway. So I was remembered how to use my voice. And that's one of the ways, because actually we can upgrade ourselves in a very easy way through our own voice. This is why they also encode a lot in the throat, like the original sin, non-expression, a huge anchors that had been energetically placed in our human holographic body, and those anchors are actually to be entangled with the ego matrix, and the ego matrix being filled with the artificial matrix. So it's like, like chain with chain with chain. So then you can ask yourself why it's so difficult to express yourself. And it's because it's the way it was configured until you do something about it. So um, that mission involves, as I was saying, the frequency of my voice, working with codes, translating codes like your source code, which is your geometrical body. Normally, I say geometrical light body because it's easier for people to relate to the light, like light body. If I say geometrical plasma body, then I need to go into, like explaining how the plasma can differentiate itself from the whole spectrum of light in order to create a geometry. So sometimes it's better just to use, light body, geometrical light body. However, it's full of plasma. It's plasma because it's not seen. It can be, well, plasma can also be seen. However, what I mean is when we get to measure, the plasma is everything in comparison to to the spectrum of light at different levels and how it behaves as photons. So anyway, um, and also decoding ancient artifacts, because these artifacts some of them have a very specific purpose, which is being reactivated to restore part of the grid, or network, let's say, that network which connects us to the primordial matrix. And so I'm given very specific missions to do to activate codes that were in dormant state from very specific parts and the temples all around the world. And then I start to activate them and reconnect them. And then from those reconnections, other kind of aspects of the consciousness will rise or also will appear, such as the cubes. For instance, when it was in the case of Egypt, when I finished that stage of my experiencing there, I was told that I had to come to Mexico because some cubes will appear. And I had already been working with time and cycles and decoding very specific cyclic systems in order to go deep into the core of the artificial matrix and start to move very specific anchors that were preset in relation to the time control system, because that's a huge harvesting control system in humanity time, you know. Actually, I do believe that the wars and all the conflicts are fighting over the control in what we call time, which is no time. Time does not exist. So it's to control that.
If we step back from all this and take a look at the big picture, you mentioned primordial matrix. I think you also mentioned ego matrix. If you could simplify everything, what is this realm that we're all sharing here together? And what are we all doing here? And what's the purpose of being here?
Well, for me, this matrix, what it's called phantom matrix or artificial matrix, or some people even call it matrix. The thing is, matrix, it comes from a Latin word. Its etymology, which is womb, matriz. So womb is any, let's say, contained reality where something is being incubated for it to then open up into another reality or another dimension, which is the same that we go through in our mother's womb, and then going through that birth canal, which is a stargate, and then popping up into this reality. So let's say that's an easy one to relate to. However, what happens when we are living in a reality where we feel things, and then, for instance, we see these artifacts, and then we say, but how can that be a simulation? I can feel it. And the thing is that due to the frequency, actually, these are connectors to the primordial matrix, because the artificial matrix was created as how I remember it, and have read it, is that the artificial matrix was created after the last cataclysm. And it was created due to the fact that in those 12 vial triangles, as how one author calls them, I don't know his name, but I know that he also has placed 12 vial triangles, which are what we know as the Bermuda Triangle, one example, or the Dragon Triangle, or the Devil Triangle, which is the other name. And there are other triangles that are placed equidistantly in the very same distance one to another, and 30 degrees up to the equator. So how could they have been placed with such precision? And the thing is that they are not natural. So they were placed after, created after 12 Merkabahs, artificial Merkabahs, were created to help the Earth's consciousness to evolve faster, because the Earth can actually come as a spaceship, to say it somehow, and move from interstellar systems, from star systems or solar systems, it can move. And how we know about other planets, that we get to meet with them, every, let's say, 26,000 years, and due to the ecliptic of the Alcyon photonic belt and so forth. But the thing is that if we humans, or star beings, or beings, or whatever, can actually evolve, everything evolves. That's the thing that we all do. Every form of existence evolves. So how does the planets evolve? And actually, they can create, if they achieve a seventh dimensional form of perception, they can actually move into the space-time fabric and actually access to other galaxies and so forth, solar systems and so forth. So that's what they tried to do. They tried to make the Earth, planet Earth, move. Because at some point they knew that things would be collapsing in the solar system, due to the cycles. The thing is that they over accelerated the Merkaba, and that generated a fissure and the construction of the space-time fabric within the primordial matrix of the Earth. So that primordial matrix went into, let's say, hibernation to regenerate itself. And in the meantime, they created an artificial matrix so that this reality could be sustainable. And there could be, humans in the earth and a movie playing. That's why they used AI to create this artificial matrix. That's why AI can read and predict this reality, because it works through algorithms. It works through a predictable field that when you get to hack that field by using, for instance, the Torah, the Quran, the Bible, you can predict reality if you know how to read and raise questions to those ancient texts. And they have used that, actually. They have predicted the death of presidents and so forth. So when they do that, well, actually, when we see that, what is that telling us? That this construction is embedded in all those books, and that all those books are coming from the future, because they already knew what was going to happen, because within the infinite field of probabilities, everything has already happened, and it's simultaneously happening within the space memory network. So that's the way that they access through time control, or space travel control, trying to access. And that's why it's so important, and why a lot of people is fighting over that and the stargates and so forth. So now we're in time that the primordial matrix has regenerated itself. And as a bliss virus, it's starting to weave into the artificial matrix. How? Through consciousness, through the 0 point energy, because actually it is required. Like how you can detect if let's say, if we are living in if we are actually moving from one stage of human evolution to another, in a more precise, with a more precise evidence, is actually the fact that we are now applying the 0 point energy, because the 0 point energy is fundamental for transitions at every scale, even in our body. If we want to create oxytocin, if we want to create endorphins, if we want to create any neurochemicals, there is happening a small vacuum that is creating 0 point energy, and then the creation of those neurochemicals. So every time that there is a huge shift or upgrade, and now the 0 point energy is coming into the level of awareness in humanity, so you can say yes, because we are being more documented, we are becoming more instructed, we are learning more. Yes. And also because collectively it is showing to us that there is a huge tidal wave that is coming with this 0 point energy to actually shift the consciousnesses in people, and 0 point energy, another, like an easier way to refer to it, is going beyond the polarism. It's going beyond taking role plays. It's being everything. It's being that singularity, that wholeness.
You said they when you're saying who created the Matrix. Who are they that created this?
Well, it was um, alliance of very specific ET races, ET groups that were the most responsible ones for accelerating those Merkabahs and then generating that fissure. And of course, other beings came along to try to help for us to know how to navigate this artificial matrix. So when I said about the AI, I said I mean that they used AI to create this matrix. However, it was not created by AI. However, they used AI to create this matrix. And for instance, let's say the ones known as Anuna, the Anuna, you know, they were part of the ones that created the artificial matrix. However, again, I do not see that all of them, or recall that all of them, created this as an imprisonment. They created it as an experiment to try to cope in this, like to take care about the cycles that would take for the primordial matrix to regenerate, like to try to compensate what they had done. So then they created that artificial matrix. And then there were a few beings that enlisted for this reality, because another part of being in this reality is that the level of evolution that you reach far exceeds if you were doing something else in another planet. Because the level of emotions that the humans produce is like nuclear energy, like the orgasm, it's the nuclear energy, because you're creating gamma waves, and then the 0 point energy of black hole, that creates like, if you measure it is comparable at a cosmic scale. Even the mitochondria in our body, the energy that they are emitting, it's at a cosmic scale. So for instance, when beings come here and, like, let's say ET races and so forth in their ET body, is like, wow, there's a lot of emotions going on there. How can they live with themselves? So that's precisely why, because we are here having this experience in which we get to receive the mastery of how to transform all those emotions, which is energy in motion, and then like quantum leaps over and over and over again, because also the capability of humanity to evolve is much faster than in other planets. It's way much faster. So when you finish here, even though they can send you back, or you choose to come back in order to do another mission or so forth, you have a lot of badges to say it somehow. It's like, yeah, it's a huge mastery what you gain here.
Would you say that this realm is the most difficult of all?
I wouldn't say the most difficult, yet perhaps one of the most complex ones, because we get to experience an illusion, and also the other part outside the illusion. And in other dimensions, they are not experiencing that illusion. Well, perhaps there are other matrices, or those other artificial matrices, for sure. However, like in comparison to another dimension that has no simulated reality, or not an artificial programming, that it's keeping in a dream spell, well, then what there is, but when you are dealing with what is and what is not, then that makes it even more interesting to say it somehow, because you're not just dealing with your human missions, you're also dealing with your galactic missions, the more aware you are of who you are.
What is the difference between the primordial matrix and the artificial matrix?
The primordial matrix was the one that was created, that, well, not created, yes, by the cosmic force, is the one that comes inherently with each planet. It's like the consciousness of the planet, that it's entangled to that consciousness. So it's a construction directly connected to the source of all. However, then the artificial matrix takes specific parameters from the primordial matrix to make it sustainable. It's like, for instance, when you say, hey, but they have been hiding the truth from us. No, they have not. The truth has always been there. However, they put it in sci-fi as sci-fi. They put it very encodedly. They put it, and in universal terms, they are, they haven't gone beyond the law, because one of the principles is when you have information, you need to share it. It's part of your duty, your responsibility. So then it's the same, in order for this matrix, the artificial matrix, to be sustainable, it needed to have taints of the primordial one. So that's why we get to see very specific concepts that have, like preserved the morals of this reality, because those are, let's say, the saviors that allow them to say, well, we didn't cover it all in simulation. It had truth, because it needs a little bit of coherence, this simulation matrix, this artificial matrix. It's just merely quantum physics fundamentals. It needs, in order for incoherence or decoherence to exist, coherence needs to exist as well. So the as I was saying, those pillars that connects us to spirituality, to morals, ethics, or so forth, are the ones that were preserved from that primordial matrix as anchors. Imagine that when I'm saying that artificial matrix, primordial matrix, imagine your body as a hologram, and imagine all your reality as a hologram. Like in the movie The Matrix, you will see numbers. Yeah, that's one layer of that. If we go to another layer of that, which is more evolved one, you will see geometries. So within those geometries, there were anchored very specific, let's say, energetic knots. And those energetic knots are the ones that are routed to other egregores of harvesting control systems, of many of the collective beliefs that are limiting evolution. So in the primordial field, that did not exist. In the primordial matrix, that does not exist. Those anchors trying to limit the evolution. No, because it's organic. Here it's not organic. And this is why the reality is showing over and over and over and over again. They're trying to make everything non-organic. Even the time, as I was saying, is non-organic. Your biology is functioning at a rhythm, and the reality is telling you a completely different story. For instance, even the beginning of the year. Why would we celebrate the beginning of the year in January, where life hasn't blossomed? This is still hibernating. Because one pope thought, or actually one emperor, Julius Caesar, said, well, that's the story that they say, that he just thought it would be better to align it to other ones. But the thing is that there is another agenda, as we know. And the agenda is, when you imagine that you are trying to dance on the floor, and you have in your mind a song that you love and that makes your body feel awesome and you want to dance in that rhythm, but then the song that is being played by the DJ is another song that is actually the frequency, the hertz, and you're like trying to move in that dun 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 because everybody's trying to do that, but your body's telling you, hey, what are you doing? Why don't you just exit, or you just exit from the dance floor, but the magnetic density field, which is quite related to the gravitational field of the earth, is so strong that they also use that to anchor the artificial matrix, so it's like being entangled. So how we can unentangle from that gravitational field through the 0 point energy, which if we go at a quantum physics level, it is so evident. And if we go at an emotional level, then we say, okay, so we're going past beyond good guys and bad guys. I go into my singularity and I'm the wholeness. So judgmental approaches to everything, they are not draining my energy anymore, because even that they have anchored that way. The more that they generate emotions for you to hate, even though if you are now enlightened on the aspect of what the reality is, but if they keep you captive through your emotions, then you're still funneling and perpetuating that reality, because that's the way that they design it. So the more 0 point energy that we are generating, the more that we will actually be helping that process of the primordial matrix to be restored within the artificial and create that communion, which will be very interesting to see because it's a reflection of our reality. How deep or how into we are with AI, or how spiritual we are. How about both? How about that singularity?
In the beginning, I mentioned that you are also a decoder of ancient artifacts. Can you show us some of your artifacts?
Sure. Well, let me start with one that is not that heavy.
Before you decode it for us, can you tell us where these artifacts came from?
Yes, these artifacts come from Mexico. And there is a big mission that Mexico, as part of the worldwide network, is playing, which is bringing a lot of this information into light. A lot of people is actually now coming for UFO sightseeing or contacting with them. And that's also one of the messages that I received. Why? Because Mexico energetically plays the role of the heart, like as the chakras, of the world that they say. Okay, well, Mexico, even though it's not considered the heart chakra, the frequency of Mexico, they call it the wise old man. And the old wise man is capable to have his heart so expanded that can sustain this frequency, because there is no fear. And there is also, which they say a lot about Mexico. And also, for instance, in other places where all of this information is so evident, like in Egypt. In Egypt, there is no fear, you know? So in this kind of places that there is no fear to these beings, it is possible for them to come closer, and this is one example. This is a crystal ball, which is the fusion of different crystals. You can there is a very specific kind of crystal. It kind of looks like it's a fusion of onyx and calcite quartz, and also gives the resemblance of alabaster. So it has carvings. It has the heper, which is the scarab, the winged scarab, which represents precisely levitation, the capability of levitation. And what can generate levitation? Plasma, the plasma and the 0 point energy, the Planck plasma. So here we have another being that has an elongated skull, has wings, and the rest of his body is very etheric. And we can see that it's coming from Saturn. So this is also related to the primordial matrix. In the primordial matrix, there were no entanglements of black cubes with Saturn. Actually, the frequency of Saturn was very pure, and it's very, it's very pure, actually. And it's very powerful. That's why they tried to take over it.
Now, is this something that was dug up from the ground or found in a cave?
No, this was dug up from the ground. And I have videos. I just have not downloaded them in my.
So this was found in the ground with those carvings already on it.
Yes.
That's amazing.
And some of them, they glow in the dark, which means that they have been treated in a very specific way, like powder, and then they compress, they entangle their molecular structure, and then they give, but they put in most of them the luminescence, the fluorescence, which activates with UV light in places, just in some places, not overall, just in very specific places with very specific codes. Why? Because that's what is showing to us that are the keys to activate those artifacts in most of the cases. So for instance, this sphere comes with a pedestal. I will show it now. This sphere is talking to us about these plasma beings as well, because you would say a lot of people related to serpents. No, otherwise they would put the reptile skin, because they wouldn't repair themselves in the details. They would do them very detailed. So it's not about that. If they are showing this, is because it's an etheric body, it's a plasma body. So that shows to us the importance of activating our plasma body to raise our consciousness. And our plasma is active. However, I'm talking about a way much higher scale with all the solar plasma that is coming, and all those flares. It's so important. And you can even see that this also could be related to what we know as genies or jinn. Why? Because there are variants of these founders, and they were keepers of very specific places. The thing is that when the artificial matrix was created, they were imprisoned, and now they are used to fulfill the purposes that those religions have imposed. That's the thing, because they were trapped. That's what the lamp means. As soon as the artificial matrix was created, they were trapped into whatever they created, but they come from here. So they're super powerful. And those are in mastery. They master space travel, or what can also be called interdimensional travel.
It's amazing how they have the elongated skulls like what you find in South America.
With the paracas, yeah. And also the Egyptians had an elongated skull. Akhenaten, which was the last pharaoh of the galactic community in Egypt, he had elongated skull, and so Nefertiti, you know. their children and so forth. So elongated skull, it's a lot of races have, a lot of Syrians do have elongated skulls, that like this elongated, but not the only ones, you know? And even the Mayans, when you see how they show them like with this huge nose. The Mayans did not have, they had a big nose, but not that huge. The thing is that they used a device, the Mayans would put a device in the bridge of their nose to emulate the angle of the galactic beings.
Let's see the pedestal.
Sure. Oh, and just here it has like the pine cone, which is the pineal gland. And here has an eye, you know, the all-seeing eye, which is the primordial black hole where all life comes from. It even has the ankh, and you can ask yourself, how in Mexico could you find such Egyptian connection? Because these were before what we know as Mesoamerican civilizations were here. These are way more ancient. So here is the pedestal. And here we see another winged being, but has a very Sumerian dress. Because here you will also see a lot of Sumerian writing, like cuneiform writing. And here you have the eye again. And another winged being. Here we see some hieroglyphs. They are constantly almost the same hieroglyphs over and over again. Why? Because they are dictating a code. They are dictating a code. A very same code that activates most of them. They were trying for people to see it, but no. I mean, then we have here another winged being. We can see that it's erosioned for the time, so there is not like, it's not fully seen because the rock is erosioned already. This is limestone compressed with fusioned with crystals. And here we have the eye again. Well, this is actually the mouth. This represents the breath of life. This represents the manifestation of the concretion and giving birth to.
When you place the sphere on top of the pedestal, do you feel any energy?
Yeah, sure. Like you just putting, like feeling just the sphere, feeling just the pedestal, you already are feeling a lot of energy. But when both come together, and actually they come together with a cube, this is the thing. It's important for you know how to function. Otherwise, it's not active onto that extent. It will be just activated with the amount of energy that has been imprinted in it throughout the time that it was buried, you know? So it's important for you to know how to activate it. And to activate it, it involves a lot of responsibility because they are not just vibrating a very specific informational field. No, they are connected to stars, they are connected to beings, they're connected to ET races, they open portals, they nourish submatrixes or matrices, or even segments within the DNA of the space-time fabric, you know, so it's They have very, very specific purposes. And here on the other side, we have another eye, and here we have a bird, like would be the representation of Horus, and the pyramid and the serpent. And we know that this mythos of the serpent and the eagle is very very common when we see, even in Mexico, how the Mexican flag was created. So I'm just going to move it because it becomes very active. So
Okay,
yeah,
no problem. Let's take a look at the cube.
sure. Yes, I was telling you, we just found this yesterday, so we are still cleaning them.
That's an amazing find. I mean, I'd like to find something like that.
You can come over. The story about this cube is, when I was in Egypt, I was told that in October 2023, cubes will start to appear. Why cubes? Because this cube encode matrices of information entangled in very specific segments of the space-time fabric DNA. So you're capable to access through those matrices in a very specific form. And it actually is restoring the space memory network. And that involves releasing from many things, mainly related to restoring the true nature of what we call time, which is just space.
Did you dig this out of the ground at the same area that you found the spear and pedestal?
Close by. Close by. And this is made of alabaster quartz crystal. This fully glows green in the dark. And tears came from my eyes because when they started to appear, the cubes, I was sad in October 2023. And it was in October 2023 that they started to appear. You have the beings with the elongated skull. This has a crown, very Osiris type of. Osiris was a neter in ancient Egypt, a king also. And this represents, besides, of course, being shaped in the way that the skull was, it also represents the activation of the pineal gland through the causal chakra, which is here in this, located here. Well, let's say that a human skull would have it here. And for instance, here we have another Horus. This is a glyph that you will commonly see. Some people relate it to Sirius. It's an arc, and it's related to a genetic arc. But also it can be related to an arc as the Osiris arc, the constellation, which is the Argonavis, with the story of the Argonauts. Have you heard about it?
You mean Jason and the Argonauts
Yes.
from I think they're from Georgia? Is that where they are? The country of Georgia?
I don't know. I just know that they call it like Argonavis, but the true name of Argonavis, they name it that way, but the true name is the Osiris Ark or the Golden Fleece. And even there is like a secret society that is named the Golden Fleece. But anyway, this is an arc.
All the markings on this cube are also carved into the cube, right?
Yes, yes. Here we have a very interesting one, which is an eye, like the head as an eye, and we see that it's containing. So this is the principal consciousness in this cube, is the one that is containing it. And I have a friend, Mike Forrest, who also has a lot of artifacts. Perhaps I can also be introducing them to you. And he relates this one to Tiamat. But and it's interesting because T is queen, and Amat or Mat is justice. So it is related to, like the guardian holding the cube, the information, and being in a righteous spot and coming from a righteous place. And here we see another Horus, which we would be more like Oreb. And here it would be another galactic being, but this is mummified. You see, it has. So this represents also the balance in between them, because for them, the mummification represented a type of hibernation, like going through cryogenesis, like what we see, how they are encapsulated, because they would do that. They would place themselves in capsules and grab their body and go through hibernation, the galactic beings. And when the descendants, which were already humans, saw that, they tried to replicate that as well as the Chin, because some of the beings here, not in this case, but you will see them with very specific artifacts from their noses, probably to breathe in this the oxygen, which is highly toxic for most of them. And here we see the scarab again. And this represents the plasma orb. They call it the Aten, which means plasma orb. And what is showing to us is the capability to levitate by conquering and mastering the plasma. Going through that 0 point energy. Because the scarab levitates, it doesn't fly. The frequency, the vibration that its wings emit, the scarab, it's scientifically proved, it's levitating, So here we have an Anubis, which here it was quite related to Xolo, which is the king Xolo, or the god Xolo, and which is a dog that looks exactly like Anubis. But the thing is that, as we know, the dog is serious, and dog is also coming from the word dogon, which is kind of quite related to the Dogon tribe, which are quite related to Sirius. And if we spell God backwards, it's dog, so God's in connection to Sirius being that Genesis, that gen Isis, the gen of Isis, which hold all the holographic manipulation that was done and then implanted on her egg, and then have humanity as we know it. Yeah, here we have another Horus. So this is it's a cube for illumination, for connection with the bird species. This is one of the most remarkable artifacts in that. So here we have another one, and we have the pineal gland, and we have the staff, we have another heper, and then we have these constant glyphs, hieroglyphs. And here we have the energy. So through the energy, all this comes together, which is the arc. This one represents the truth. This one represents the vessel, which is facing up, which is the connection to the higher realms. And this one is the canal. And these ones are the layers that you have to go through in order to reach that. It would be around a frequency that is encoded with the 20, based on, if we're speaking about numerical algorithms, then we would be relating this to the solar consciousness. Like bringing the sun up the way to the canal, this represents the mouth. So through the breath of life, you bring the inner sun through the canal and the vital energy. And then connecting with higher levels of consciousness for the truth of who you are, and then opening up into your genetic arc, which actually enables the illumination within you. And therefore the mastery of the plasma body, which also you see, like we also could go through this and each one of them. And by the way, this also has the belief of the truth. This is the truth. Speak the truth and connect with higher realms. So this is the main force. And this is the feather of also the righteous mat. And here the plasma orb and the main canal. So each one he's holding also some glyphs here behind, but it's more like he's related. I haven't finished decoding them, okay? So, but I could go forward, but then right now and decode them. But yeah, that would take us a little bit more time.
That's okay. And we're kind of running out of time.
Yeah,
Um,
of course.
so let me ask you this. Earlier, you mentioned about creating 0 point energy. How do we do that for ourselves?
Well, how I do it is I do meditation or a connection, because with the frequencies that I work, that I was saying earlier, I record from my voice, I translate quantum physics formulas through a very specific way, only through sound. And I have also access to very specific sounds, like in the case of black hole, or how the microtubules in your neurons sound. So I put all that together, create that frequency, and then I start meditating. And first you can do it in many ways, but I'm just going to share. For instance, I create a mudra in the level of my navel. Why in my navel? Because that's where the ego matrix is located holographically. Like due to the tree of life, and how the spheres in our tree of life are located, the ego matrix is located precisely here, connected with the gods, connected with the umbilical cord, like the umbilical cord connecting with the artificial matrix and receiving all the information from there. That's why it's important to detach from the artificial matrix and restore the connection to the primordial matrix to get the truth through our gods, and then our gods not to be, like triggered by the lies. And then all that ends up influencing our ego matrix, and our form of perception. So when we cleanse and restore all of that, you can put up mudra, and then the frequency that I use, I transfer my consciousness to a black hole. And as I'm listening to how the black hole sound, you can listen to the black hole. Or if you don't have the frequencies, you can just imagine yet you are the black hole and give the command. I transfer for this moment until I command differently, that my consciousness is transferred to a black hole. And then you connect with the very same black holes that are in your body, because our chakras are black holes. Every proton has a mini, tiny black hole that is which keeps the strong force in between the molecules, in between the protons, and then so forth. So you transfer your consciousness to a black hole, and then you start to experience yourself as a black hole. You might start feeling, for instance, thoughts, emotions, whatever is keeping your head a little bit out of peace, and unclear. You bring all of that, you face it, and not only face it, you bring it, because it's energy that it's in your field. So you're bringing it from one extreme of the black hole. But a black hole is not a force that is sucking energy and then nothing else comes back from that. That is distorted information. And now people will be re-educated of what a black hole is. And a black hole is quite stable, but yeah, it magnetizes energy. The sun has a black hole, the earth has a black hole, and all of this information will, in the next years, be officially accepted. So anyway, when you have a black hole, on the other side, you have a white hole. Penrose, quantum physicist, described it as a white hole to put that, like point A, point B. So for instance, if you're bringing in, let's say, confusion, uncertainty, despair, fear, whatever, you embrace it. And you feel how from the other side of the black hole is coming to you certainty, security, safety, all the other side, the counterpart. And in that center of you, of your navel, those forces are coming together, creating this force that as they try to come together, they start to also repel each other. They cannot get to connect. So here they're creating a void. And that void is actually because imagine that it's the Casimir effect. I won't go to quantum, but imagine that you have these two forces trying to come together. But as they have different charges, they don't fully repel each other, but they don't fully come together. So they're just separated or bridging through a space. And that space starts to create counterparts, one trying to come here and one trying to come here. So then that starts to create a void. And that void is neutrality, 0-point energy. So you're not trying, it's like, for instance, if you have a rainy day and now you want a sunny day, that's what we were normally taught. If you feel fear, no, feel safety, feel safety, feel safety, feel safety, feel safe. What about feeling nothing, not being identified with anything and using that energy to create whatever you want? So that's what happens. So you're bringing that which you don't want to feel, you bring that which you would normally want to feel, bring them together, and through your breath work, you're feeling, you're being that black hole. The black hole has not emotions, has no perceptions, like limited conditionings. So you're just bringing those two forces, trying to bring them together, and then they generating a torsion and coming into 0-point energy. And then you don't need to do anything. You choose to do whatever you want, because then your level of consciousness is like, okay, it's okay. We can do whatever, and that is invaluable, because then you're not seeking for things. Things come to you, or actually both meet.
Yssah, after watching this podcast, people may want to reach out to you and ask you questions. Are you open to that?
Yeah, sure.
What's the best way to contact you?
Well, I have my email and my website, or also my Facebook page. I mean, I can. The names are kind of complex because they're not in this language.
Well, you can just
So
send me the links and I'll put them in the description below.
sure, I will do so. Thank you. Thank
All
you,
right.
Jeff.
Well, before we finish up, can you leave us with a last positive message?
Every time that you try to find yourself in an event, in a situation, even in information, just remember that that information is a result of what you have created. From here, to remember not to look outside, yet to look within. So all of these artifacts, treasures, valuable quotes, and everything that we can get to see, just a reflection of what we created in unity, to make us remind as a reminder of who we truly are.
Yssah, thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest.
Thank you for having me, Jeff. Thank you so much. Thank you. You're so kind, and the way that you hold the space, and just the way that you deliver. Thank you for doing everything that you are doing. Thank you for putting all this information out, for connecting people. It's very important what you are doing, and I appreciate how you put it all together. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.